Boston College football is going to learn quite a bit about themselves under new head coach Bill O'Brien during spring practice.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, everyone. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black, editor and publisher of 247's Eagle Insider. Hope you all are doing well. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs help you find the right people for your job faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So, Eagles. You Eagles fans out there waiting for spring practice to start. Bill O'Brien has not set a date yet. And the reason why we have not heard a date yet is because the staff has not been announced yet. We know, if you've been following along on Eagle Insider, who the staff is going to be. On the offensive side of the ball, it's a lot of the same names. On wide receiver coach Darryl Wyatt, offensive line coach Matt Applebaum, and running backs coach Savon Huggins are all going to return for their with the new regime. He's bringing in offensive coordinator Will Long. On the defensive side of the ball, lots of new names, including Jeff Commission and the defensive line, Dan O'Brien, linebackers, and they have a new cornerbacks coach coming from Wazoo as Ray Brown as well, along with Tim Lewis, their defensive coordinator. But we haven't heard officially that's going to happen yet. Now, expectations is that spring practice is going to start soon. You're going to have it go around the same time that it usually does. That ends around, April break for kids, with breaks and whatnot. But there's a lot of excitement right now because I think there's a lot of folks that really want to see what this team's going to look like. What changes will this new coaching staff put onto this team? And I think spring practice, getting them in and getting your players going will get you a chance to do that. Now, is it fair to say if there's huge changes, we're going to see it right off the bat? Probably not. They're only going to get 15 practices to get that going. But it's a chance. And it'll give us a glimpse of the culture and the scheme that we're going to see under a new regime. Gone are the days of Jeff Hafley and whatever he was planning on doing and the confusion that kind of went along with that. It seems to me Bill O'Brien has a vision of what he's going to do, and he's going to execute it. This is a nuts and bolts type of coach that knows what he wants and knows what he wants to bring here. And so for spring, I'm expecting practices to be closed. It's always closed to the public, which is a bummer for BC fans because you always want to go. But maybe things will change there. Remember, Steve Addazio had some open practices. Jeff Hafley, it was like Fort Knox with his. I don't know why he always felt so, he was so paranoid about people finding out his scheme, which was, what were they going to find out? But now let's look at this team. You've got your team here, and you're looking at some positional battles that are going to go into this year. Now, to preface this, I'd like to say that every position is going to be up for a battle. There's no favorites going into this year that are like locked in stone. Now, should you expect Ozzie Trapilo to be a tackle? Absolutely. Should you expect Donovan Azaraku to be the starting defensive end? You bet it. You better believe it. But I look at every other position, maybe with the question of quarterback, as something that is up for grabs. There's a chance that anyone can get that. And there's only a few names that are going to be etched in stone. So positional battles, the big ones I am looking at, are gonna be based off of the scheme that Bill O'Brien's bringing. Jeff Hafley brought in a bunch of transfers, and you have to wonder, especially on the offensive side of the ball, where do they fit on what Bill O'Brien wants to do? There's some intriguing names, but where will they go? Where will they go, and what will they do with these players? So the first position I'm looking at is the running back position, and a battle here, because you'd assume that Kai Robashu is going to be the starting running back next year. You'd assume that they have a stable of backs of guys behind him, like Trayshawn Ward, who they brought in from Kansas State, and Alex Broom and Jordan McDonald, that are going to kind of slot in as the guys behind him. No, I don't think this is as set in stone as you may think. Remember, Jeff Halfley, when he left with Steve Shimko, they had an offensive system that was very, very dependent on power running. Bill O'Brien may do that, but he also may go in a different direction with what he wants to do with that running game. He may want it to complement more the passing attack. In that case, do you wonder if maybe Trayshawn Ward out of Kansas State, who's a little bit of a slimmer back, more explosive than Robichaux, could he get the start? Could he become the starting running back for this team? I think it's worth pondering, because you're talking about styles here. If your back in a Bill O'Brien system needs to do more in terms of the passing game, Kai Robichaux may be more limited than what Ward can do. Then that also adds in, like, you look up and down like that roster. Like, could Alex Broom push himself up? Like, is there a bigger role in a passing attack with Alex Broom? Can they actually harness that? Because he was never really harnessed under Jeff Halfley. 2022, they had some passing plays set to him, but it wasn't ever really utilized. That running back room, I think, is going to be an interesting one to watch, because it could showcase and really highlight where where Bill O'Brien's brain is at. Another position that I'm really interested in is going to be the wide receiver position. There are so many, and we're going to get into all of them, the wide receivers that are coming in that I think in a good system could really thrive. You start at the top. You start with Lewis Bond. You look at what he did at the beginning of the year when Thomas Castellanos was healthy, and he looked like a true number one wide receiver. He was a good guy. His yak was incredible, like yards after carry. This is a guy that you get him the ball, and he'd take it 20 extra yards every time he touched it. Near the end of the season, once injuries started to hit, especially Castellanos, it looked like a different wide receiver. So he was one guy that, I think with a good passing attack could really take that next level. I look at what he is capable of doing and say to myself, okay, could he be wide receiver number one? Will he get it? Will he be either a slot receiver or a periphery receiver, boundary receiver? And how effective will he be? So that's one. And in a moment, I'm going to get into the other wide receivers and let you know why I think they're going to be another position that's well worth watching when it comes to spring practice. Football is over, but man, basketball is going full steams, and you can get your buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. They're getting closer to the playoffs. Good teams are starting to really separate themselves from the bad teams. You get some really interesting matchups with some bloated spreads that you could find on FanDuel. I'm a big Celtics fan, and I'm feeling they're going to be going pretty far. So I like a lot of those bets. And the best part about FanDuel is it's so easy to use. When you look at that app, I love it because you're not spending a ton of time looking for things. If you know what you want, you go on FanDuel, you find the game, boom, everything that's available there. You find it, make your bets. You can create your own parlays. So easy to use. And if you win, you get paid instantly. Love it. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black, and we're talking about spring practice. And if you have not already, go over to Eagle Insider, where I write, and you could find all sorts of articles about the upcoming spring practice. We got Mitch covering what Bill O'Brien, Mitch Wolf, our writer, covering what Bill O'Brien is going to bring, looking at film, offensive schemes. If you know what Mitch can do in terms of offensive film, you got to check it out. It's worth the price of admission itself. But we're talking about the wide receivers because this is a group going into spring practice I'm really interested in. You've got, I said, Lewis Bond. The name that keeps popping up that I think was the biggest transfer get for BC was Jerron Bradley. This is a kid from Texas Tech, 6'5", and 6'5" is good. Size obviously is a nice thing to have. But what Mitch Wolf told me was when he watched his film, his get up from his stance was explosive and absurd for a guy his size. So this is the big target at playing at it could be an elite level. I've seen scouts say, other than Mitch, that no, this is a first round draft pick if he can get himself together. So I am so excited to see what Bill O'Brien can do with this guy. Remember, Bill O'Brien worked with Randy Moss. He worked with Wes Welker. He's worked with really good wide receivers, all the guys at Alabama. You name it, he's been there. And Bradley, to me, is going to give you that vertical threat that I think is going to be an interesting plot line to watch moving forward. Because remember last year, what was Thomas Castellanos good at? It was the short and intermediate stuff and letting his wide receivers do things. Will he be like? It's great that you have a quarterback, a wide receiver that can do that. Like you're going to be able to stretch the field with Bradley, but can Castellanos get him the ball? That's going to be where that's where O'Brien's going to be key. Because remember last year when every time Thomas Castellanos went deep, it felt like a wasted down because he was never close to his wide receivers. And in many cases, he threw interceptions on those passes. So it's great that they have a vertical threat, but do they have a quarterback that can get him the ball? I think that's going to be a big one. Also at wide receiver, you got Jaden Skeet, who's a true freshman last year from Catholic Memorial, showed some real chutzpah by the end of that season. Really good, good hands. I know the staff last year felt really good. You add him in. So you've got right now just 3 wide receivers that I can't wait to see what they do with them. Where do they line them up? Who kind of jumps ahead? Who gets, the most reps with Castellanos? Who may need some more seasoning? Those 3 right there. But then you add in Jaden McGowan, another wide receiver speedster that they brought in from South Carolina and from Vanderbilt. You remember he was committed to South Carolina. They flipped him. This is a kid that's going to play the Ryan O'Keefe role. How will he fit in? How will Dino Tomlin fit in? This is a guy that, Jeff Hafley always felt comfortable pushing in. So that wide receiver room is going to be critical. Those are the 2 big positional pieces I want to watch. As a unit, I am very excited to see what the defense looks like because we're going to get into this more with Mitch Wolf when he comes back in. It looks to me that Tim Lewis, the new defensive coordinator, is going to go 3-4. BC's been a 4-3 defense, 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers. Now it looks like he's going to go base 3-4, which is 3 defensive linemen, 4 linebackers, which I think is kind of scary given that the linebackers struggled last year. But I want to see Bryce Steele. Where is he at? Is he going to be ready to play? Looking at who fits into this system and what players step up. Because that defense was not good last year. Oh boy, that was not good. But they need to get better. They need to get so much better. And with the new set of eyeballs on there, I'm going to say that whole group is going to be a group I'm going to want to watch for. I said earlier, the only position that I would say is locked in stone is Azaraku. I mean, Cam Horsley, I would assume, is going to get a majority of snaps. But everywhere else, who knows what Tim Lewis sees, what he could bring in. So that's that. Now, I have 3 players that I want to watch too when it comes to spring practice. There's positional battles, there's spring practice. These are players that it doesn't mean that they are going to start, but I'm just dying to see what they can do. And I'm going to get into that in just a moment. Now, if you are into going to games, if you're going to theater and um, concerts, you got to check out Game Time, man. I'm telling you right now, it's a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy events, and theater events near you. With killer last minute deals, all in prices, view from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I have gone to many different games, and Game Time, the experience I have using this app, it blows the other sites out of the water because they get the site. You can see your seats from the seat viewer that they have. No surprises. You have your all-in prices. So when you see your price, there's no other hidden fees. There's no like, whoa, this is twice as much as what I want to expect. It's what you just saw. I love that. It's upfront. It shows you what you're going to get. There's no surprises. That's what makes Game Time the best. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Terms apply. Just download the Game Time app and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Locked On Boston College. This is your host, AJ Black, and we're looking at 3 players to watch. And I am most excited about I'm a weird guy. I like watching backup quarterbacks. I like to see what BC has coming down the pike because there's 2 things that the reasons why I want to see this. In years past, as we said going into the 2023 season, in the last like 7 straight years for BC, they've had to use their backup quarterback because of injuries. Last year, they had to do it just a little bit, but they did have to use Emmett Morehead at times. But the other piece was last year, the backup quarterback became the starting quarterback because we went into week 1. That depth chart that came out had Emmett Morehead as the starter. And then by the end of that game, it was Thomas Castellanos, the guy that no one really knew about, starting that, playing the majority of snaps. So going into this season, that's a big question mark because Emmett Morehead's gone. He's still in the transfer portal. No one's picked him up, which I think is weird. You figure like a G5 school would want him. He's not a bad quarterback, and I feel like a good quarterback system could fix him. But he's nowhere. But so you brought in Jeff Halfley brought in his backup in Grayson James from FIU a couple weeks ago. And this is a guy that's played, he had 11 touchdowns, 11 interceptions the big year that he played. And he kind of got overshadowed last year by a freshman quarterback that took his spot. So Grayson James is one that I'm interested to see, but I'm more interested in seeing Jacoby Robinson. Jacoby Robinson is the redshirt freshman quarterback who Jeff Halfley thought a lot of. He's from Texas, big kid who can run, do some things. He's got a big arm. I don't know what to expect from him, though. I see folks really excited about him, and I don't know what it's based off of because his spring game last year was not impressive. I don't know what people thought was really good about it, but he looked like an 18-year-old that was just playing with college players and didn't know what was going on. But I've heard that he's kind of settled in more. So I'm interested to see how he battles and how he looks with a guy like Grayson James, who's basically brought in to be that backup. Who's going to win that battle? Who's going to look like they're ready to be the backup quarterback? Especially with Bill O'Brien. He's the quarterback dude. He might have a different view. I'm guessing he's got a very different view than what Jeff Halfley and Steve Shimko had. So that's one position, one player I'm excited to watch. Another player I'm excited to watch is Bryce Steele, linebacker. I said on a previous episode, he was on a podcast or YouTube channel of some of his teammates talking about whether he would be back or not. And it sounded like he's going to be back. I'm not sure he's going to be back for spring ball, but it wouldn't surprise me. And so we don't know, and maybe he'll talk about it. He didn't talk about it on the podcast, what his issue was or the personal health reason that made him miss the 2023 season. But he's a big piece. Folks were asking all last year, like all offseason, like, why isn't Boston College going for a transfer linebacker? Where's the interest there? And we just kept saying, the staff felt good about guys like Davion Crouch and Sione Hala and Jalen Blackwell, who missed almost all of last year. But the fact that you're getting back, hopefully, Bryce Steele is as good as any transfer you're going to get. He is, I think one of the most talented linebackers they have. But we don't know where he's at. Is he 100%? Is he 75%? Where is he at in terms of his health? That's an important thing. Football's great, but I'm just hoping, just like with Ryan O'Keefe last year, that this kid is if he's set to go, how healthy is he? What's he going to bring? That's my second player that I am dying to watch. The third player that I am dying to watch this spring is Bryquise Brown. This is a cornerback that came in from Georgia State. Bruce Brown of the Indiana Pacers' younger brother. He's from Dorchester, Mass. The secondary was pretty thin last year. I think we can all agree upon that. And then when Elijah Jones went out with whatever happened, it got really thin. And Jeff Hafley saw that. He was playing Bryce Tucker and some young, CJ Klingscales, who's gone. He needed to bring in some depth. He brought in Ryan Turner of Ohio State, and he brought in Bryquise Brown. You're hoping that Amari Jackson gets healthy and he's good to go, and Jalen Sheik. So you got some guys there, but Bryquise Brown, from all I've heard, for the people who don't say that Jerron Bradley is the best transfer that they brought in, the hidden gem is Bryquise Brown. This is a guy, yes, he came from Georgia State, but from everything I've heard, this is a kid that could become the best cornerback on this team. That he should be CB1. He should be, Bryquise Brown Island, if you want to call it that. He's an exciting kid. Don't sleep on where he's from. That's, he's a Georgia State guy. He's not a Power 5. Yeah, whatever. He's from FBS caliber team. He was their number one cornerback and played like that. He was all Sun Belt, I believe, both years. He's an exciting cornerback, and he gives you what you need, because then behind that, you can slot in Amari Jackson, Jalen Sheik, Ryan Turner. You've got your guys there. Would I love to see them bring in some more depth on the defensive back? I would love to. I'm not sure they can. I think their numbers are on the scholarship front are pretty slim, but I think that's something to look at. And now I want to give you two things to expect. Now, we're going to expect physical football. I think Bill O'Brien is going to bring a physicality and a mental toughness that goes beyond what Jeff Hafley did. He's already doing it with their new strength and conditioning coach, Casey Fitzgerald. But I think that's going to bleed through all of practice. You're going to see a toughness on this team that is very apparent right off the bat. I also expect this is going to be a huge recruiting period for BC. Now, if you're following along, you might be thinking on Twitter, you follow me, you see me post all the new offers and things like that. You're like, wow, with the new staff, this is really quiet. What's going on? Why is there only a handful of offers going out? It's because it's a dead period right now. Staff can't reach out to new names. They really can't reach out to players in general. They have to kind of, it's all this finessing to get in touch with recruits. So they're able to do it sometimes, but you got to wait till March 3rd. March 3rd is when it's going to open. But I'm already hearing a ton of players that are coming to visit BC. You're seeing some kids from out Midwest, a lot of local kids. They're all talking about coming to visit. So it's going to be a very busy recruiting period because this is the first crack that Bill O'Brien has at these kids, at recruiting them. So I look at this as a very important time for recruiting too. There's a lot going on there. And then finally, what else to expect? I expect some transfers. I expect this is not all going to be rosebuds and maroon and gold love. There's going to be a couple players that are just not going to gel. It's fact of life here, folks. It doesn't mean anything bad about Bill O'Brien, but there's going to be some players that don't like his hard style, that don't fit in here, or they are already seeing the writing on the wall that their role is not what it was under Jeff Hafley, and they might enter the portal after the spring game. I expect a handful. I'm thinking 3 to 5 that'll probably say, I'm going to try something else. And that happened last year. It's not a new thing, but that's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting a few guys that are just going to say, I'm going to go try something else. That being said, that's going to allow BC to get a few other new names in here post spring as well. So I think spring portal is going to be important too. Those are all things. So culture, recruiting. I said 2, I gave you 3. And transfer portal. I think those are all things to expect this spring. This is AJ Black. Thank you all so much for following along. We'll be back tonight. Probably talk a little bit about the UVA game. I believe that's tonight. We'll talk everything else in between. And there is any football news, believe me, we got it here on Locked On Boston College, your team every day.